Okay, guys, please stay with us because we are slowly starting our panel, and it would be great for all of you to stay with us at least for those 30 minutes. We will try to keep it short because we know that you want to continue the networking, but I think it's important also to get some crucial insights that you can later on also discuss between you, and it's always a good, let's say, conversation starting point to have some nice content with us. So I don't want to delay it further, so maybe let's start with a brief introduction of our guests. We have obviously Eva, Markus, Chris, and my co-moderator Maciek with us. But it would be great if you could, in one sentence, introduce yourself, and we can then start with the questions.
Well, I will start. Hi, everyone. Happy to be here. I am Eva, one of the partners at 3VC, which is a Series A fund investing in the CE, in the German-speaking markets. And by Series A, I mean companies that have found their product market fit and are ready to grow faster.
Hey, super quickly, my name is Markus, super excited to be here as well. I'm an investor at Northzone. We're a global multi-stage fund investing from first check, so pre-seed seed, to the early growth stages across all sectors and across Europe, and that includes the Polish market and also Krakow, and we already backed one founder here, and we're super keen to back more teams out of the region.
Hi, I'm Chris, a co-founder of Stonely, so a company that was founded also by Northzone. We built the product to enhance the digital adoption and customer service. So that's what we do, and I'll probably talk a bit more about it later.
I'm Maciek, one of the partners at Credo Ventures. We back the founders from Central Eastern Europe, building global companies all across the world. We usually like to be the first money in, investing on pre-seed and seed into, as basically the topic of the panel says, outlier businesses with founders from this part of the world.
Awesome. So I'm Dominika, and I'm just here for, let's say, supporting the moderation. So it would be great, Maciej, maybe you would like to start with the first question, and we can move it from there.
Yeah, definitely. So let's probably get straight to the theme, the topic of the panel. How to actually build an outlier business from here, from Krakow. We've been talking about pretty much 3 companies for years now. We've been talking about Brainly, Contact.io, Estimote, who have been there for years, who have, paved the way for the new generation of companies raising, a lot of capital from investors from Western Europe, from the US, graduating from great incubators like Y Combinator. We have a new wave of companies that are building extremely exciting stuff here from Krakow, and we also have one company kind of in between that is basically Stonely. Stonely is one of the companies that is already super successful. You guys have raised, if I remember correctly, 25 million euros, right, or dollars, from tier 1 great investors. And you're based here in Krakow, like a huge chunk of your team is based here. So could you basically tell us your story? Like, how did it all start, and what's your part of the journey, and how Krakow is kind of the hub for Stonely?
Sure. So my story begins in Paris, actually, like 9 years ago when I joined Dashlane. It's a password manager. That's where I met Alexi. That's where I met also David, so the co-founders of Stonely. I worked closely with Alexi on the product side of Dashlane app. So we were doing more B2B motion at that time. So I got more experience in the product. I got more experience in building the great product that Dashlane was. And after 4 years spent at Dashlane, I basically decided together with Walec to start a new journey to build Stonely. And in our case, it's important fact that we really knew what was the issue at Dashlane with the support. So the support was overwhelmed with the support tickets, and the form that we were, the long articles in the KB weren't helpful. So we decided to build something that would solve that problem, and that's how it started. That was our MVP. It took us 6 months to build the first product, to go to market, to test it first with Dashlane. It's great to have connections. That's the story. And yeah, let's get back to the point about Krakow. Alex, he was based in Paris. I was based in Krakow. We decided to build company in the 2 places at the very beginning. Then David joined us and started the company in US as well. But the first employees we hired in Krakow, and we consider Krakow as a great place to build a company because of a couple of reasons. First of all, there's a great pool of talents, and if you see at the market, you can see a lot of big companies, corporations building companies.
Can you tell us maybe in which area that you appreciate the talent the most? Because we all say that the talent is great, but maybe if you could tell us what you value the most, or what type of specialist you're always looking for, and where you appreciate to the
Sure. So engineers, first of all, there are great engineers that put Stonely at a different level, and that was. Well, I had some connections in here. I had a good network, so I knew people that could really help us and that could build a great product. So engineers, but also product people. We hired product designers in Krakow. We hired product managers in Krakow as well. So that's the second part that we focus on. Yeah, the designers. I'm a head of design at Stonely, so I'm very close to the design scene. There are great designers in Poland in general, and great designers in Krakow as well. So, except the part of the product design part, there's also great pool of talents in terms of the general design, marketing design, and people who really make a difference in terms of advertising, marketing, and so on.
Awesome. Markus, you're, let's say, the investor in Stonely, so this is great to, to see you both on those chairs. So it would be great to hear your perspective, like what made you decide to invest in Stonely, and, what type of qualities of the company attracted you the most, and hopefully that will also give some kind of point of reference to our crowd to see, like, what qualities the company has to meet in order to gain your investment.
Yeah, certainly. So I think there were a few things that stood out to us the moment we met the team, and coincidentally, Chris and I were thinking back on when we first met, and it was actually in the summer of 2021 here in Krakow, and shortly after we made the investment. And so 3 things really stood out to us when we met the team. So first of all, and I think it's something that Marcin has alluded to already, we were super impressed by how ambitious and driven the team is, and what a chip on the shoulder they had, despite having built a successful company already, with Dashlane being one of the very iconic success stories in Europe, saying from there, hey, we have seen a problem firsthand while building that company, and we want to go on that whole journey again with a vision that is equally big or arguably even bigger, is something that really, really compelled us to engage with the team. And then I would say, secondly, they were really good from the get-go on not just executing very fast, but I think especially in the early stages, we call it like the speed of iteration, because kind of when you're at the pre-seed seed stage and you're moving to Series A, it's not really clear yet what the path is.
How were you evaluating the speed of execution?
Yeah.
Because that's something that is easy to, let's say, evaluate after the investment, but like before that, like how were you approaching that?
I think it's something that comes through the interaction and the discussion, and you kind of get a sense of not just kind of how the team thinks through different ideas and hypotheses, but you also hear and get a sense of, hey, they're actually good at testing these different ideas as well, and then taking these learnings and kind of creating new experiments, and from there really kind of finding a path to something that has product market fit and that scales.
Okay. Any other interesting, let's say, searches on your roadmap? Like, have you seen many of companies of the similar profile as Stonely that you are keen to invest? Like, how's the current, let's say?
And I would actually double click on that. Like, have you ever considered Stonely's exposure to Poland and presence here in Krakow as one of competitive advantages? Was it something that you have considered, or was it irrelevant?
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, as we kind of engaged with the team and spoke more about the round and did kind of our work in assessing the team, the product, etc., it really stood out that, I mean, Chris and the team have built a world-class R&D team here in Krakow. And I think if you take a step back, there was even a broader philosophy of saying, hey, we build a team and a founding team of complementary strengths. So you have David, kind of, who's great at sales and go-to-market, and he's based in New York, and he's leading that team from there and building it there. Then you have Alexei, who's the product visionary, and he's kind of building that kind of from Paris with a great product team. And then you have kind of Chris, who leads and spearheads the design function, which is super crucial to this type of product. And then also building the engineering hub here from Warsaw. And the quality is very high, and I think we were very impressed by what Stonely had built when we met them 2 years ago with actually very, very little resources.
Amazing. So maybe now let's move to Eva, because your fund is investing a lot also in the let's say more western part of Europe, and like what makes you look into our region, and also what makes you come today to Krakow? Like what type of perspectives for investment do you see here? And we are looking forward to learning more, like what type of companies you are searching for.
Yeah, I think there are two parts of the answer. One is definitely something personal, because I'm originally from Latvia, and seeing what Skype did to Estonia, seeing what UiPath is doing to Romania, right? I really just want to have more of those success stories here in the broader region. By broader region, I mean Central Eastern Europe. And we as investors in then are a small puzzle piece into that kind of success story of companies starting out here but then becoming global champions. So that's kind of my personal drive, why I am actually spending time in Central Eastern Europe. I'm coming to Krakow, I'm going to Warsaw, I'm traveling to the Czech Republic, because we want to discover those, we want to support those. And when we started 7 years ago, the Western Europe, like really Western Europe, like the UK, France, those markets, they were already quite saturated with investors. So we said, let's be conscious, let's build as a fund our presence, our network here in the region where the team comes from. So we focus on German-speaking markets and Central Eastern Europe, and let's be a great partner to the companies here in the region. And what attracts us, I think also what you said about Stonely, right? Here, I think you see less lifestyle entrepreneurs proportionally. Here you see founders that have seen a problem, have faced a problem, want to solve that problem, build a product, and then start building a company. You know what you get. There is less overselling that maybe sometimes make it hard for founders here to work with the US investors, because they are used to overselling and will discount whatever you as a founder say coming here from the region. But I think we as investors just need to manage our expectations. We need to know how the founders here are. And then in the end, the people are very much down to earth, but yet very ambitious. And I think those are great ingredients. I think Stonely's example, having a sales lead in New York, probably is kind of the best and win-win, because we see that sometimes this region kind of lacks a bit of that sales and marketing muscle, but then again, founders mostly are very aware what are their weaknesses, and then if we see that they are actually ready to complement the team and build that muscle, then I think you have really strong fundamentals to build really significant companies out there. So that's why we like great products, great engineering teams. We talked about founders that are down to earth. They know what they can, what they can't, and then if we see that they are ready to complement that, I think then you have what you need to build a great company.
Are those the key evaluation points that you use, like a team, or can you name more that we could use as a benchmark?
Yeah, I think the two really the first ones, it's the team and it's the market size. We as VCs, when we invest, we need to believe that the company can, in Series A, we need to believe that the company can get to 100 million plus revenue mark in 5, 6, 7 years. And that implies a very big market. And for us, a very big market means at least 1 billion market or a smaller market that grows very, very fast. And that also often means that you have to sell internationally, like regional plays will not typically result in big enough outcomes. And then we need to see this ambition. Sometimes you, especially for first-time founders and I really understand them, you kind of get that vibe that once there will be the first offer to buy the company for 50 million, founders will do that because for them it's a great outcome. You know, maybe everybody gets like 15 million in cash, that's life-changing. But for us as VCs, it doesn't really work. So we need to kind of really get to know the founders, understand what motivates them. Are they ready to go all the way? It's a long way. But yeah, so big market, great team aware of strengths and weaknesses, and then I would say here we would assume that the products would be best in class, but then we just need to also make sure that the founders are able to hire great people for sales and marketing. So that's, I would say that's key, but then of course there is a long list that I'm happy to talk about later on.
So we know how this experience looked like from Eva's perspective, Markus as well. Chris, like you were kind of in the fundraising process twice, right? You raised your seed, you raised your from Accel, you raised your Series A from Northzone. So like, how did it look like from your perspective? Like, what were the most challenging parts of the process? What did you enjoy the most? What were your experiences?
So I wonder where to start. Yeah, to me, the focus was always on the product and to deliver whatever best we can deliver, and that's a big piece of what investors are looking at. So my focus was there, and I think that I can get back to something that you mentioned before, being complementary, and that's what we built at Stonely. So you mentioned Alexis. Alexis is a great leader. He has great mindset. He can have a great vision of the product. David is mostly focusing on sales and marketing and building the great team, while I am mostly taking care of the product as well and the design, like the execution part. So to be frank, I didn't take the big part of the talks with the investors. Sure, we met when I really appreciated the fact that you came to Poland, that you met with the whole team. That was super nice. So yeah, we also had a chance to hang out in the city, so to have a dinner together, to meet each other. That's a pretty important part. So well, we are people in the end. So
that's probably the dream come true for most founders, right?
yeah. That's a dream come true. And but the great thing is that we really enjoy talking with each other, working with each other, and I believe this is the great cooperation between us. And that's super cool to have investors that are really dedicated, that really take part, that care about what we do. So I could probably tell you more about the cooperation, the way we work together than the moment when we were talking before the round.
Makes sense. So let's come back to that later. Definitely love to touch on that.
Cool.
Eva, Markus, I would just double clicking on the theme again. What is a definition of an outlier business for you? Like, your fund sizes differ. We at Credo deploy 75 million euros, so obviously our fund mathematics kind of differ as well, right? For us, like owning 10% in $1 billion outcome kind of returns the fund even slightly more than once. But like, given you guys are deploying way bigger funds, like what a real success means to you? Like what kind of level of ambition are you looking for? how big the company should be? Is it only about the size of the outcome, or is it also like how fast you can get there? What are your takes, Markus?
Yeah, happy to go first. Yeah, I think speaking purely about fund economics, and I mean, it is a reality because I think we also do fundraising as VCs, and so you perfectly alluded to that. Our early stage fund is 600 million euros in size, and so we need to be able to return that to the pension funds and endowments, etc., that are supporting us, right? And so for us, the outcome probably needs to be slightly larger. So we would probably say, ideally, we would kind of hold 10 to 15% in the company, and it would need to be a multi-billion-dollar outcome. So that's kind of ideally what we're looking for, just in terms of math. But in the end, I mean, you can't really predict that, right? I think if you're building a massive company or going after a big market with a big vision, I think that is kind of what we're looking for, and then having the faith in that will play out if all the things go right, is I think what is most important to us.
Yeah, I mean, our fund is probably closer to Credo Ventures in the fund size. We are deploying 130 million, and how we look at that, we as an investor, we are quite flexible on the target ownership. We don't need to own 15 or 20%, but for us, every investment needs to have potential to return our fund once. So that's how we think. That also, I think, makes us a bit more flexible than you do. But in the end, as you say, it's a product that customers love, team that can grow the business, and just that you get a feeling what investors expect in an ideal world. Once we invest, we want you to grow fast, and fast growth used to mean like 3x, 3x, 2x, 2x. I think today investors are okay if you grow a bit slower in today's market conditions, but in the end, I think one of the main reasons why we often decline investment opportunities is that founders, for them, great growth is growing below 100% per year, which is, amazing, but it just doesn't then align with what we as investors are looking for. So I think it's also important that you as founders just know what it means to get a VC on board. It comes with some strings attached. I think we can be great partners on that journey, but we need to return that money to our investors at some point of time as well.
Okay, what about, let's say, the current trends that you see on the market? Like, we hear a lot about artificial intelligence. Everyone is mentioning that, and I think that there's like a amazing future in front of that technology. But are there any other trends that you're excited about that you or in which you're looking for startups to invest in, or even you, Chris, whether there are some technologies that you are willing to introduce into your business? Can you comment on that? I'm just curious, like what type of, let's say, technology specialization we should try to embrace here in the Krakow community.
VCs talk a lot to other VCs, and if you ask another VC what you are looking at, most will say AI at the moment. So that's true. I think in the end, I think AI is there to stay, and that massive change comes with that. But also, I think a lot of existing companies will benefit in a massive way from that, with existing distribution channels, with existing products where you can relatively simple actually deploy AI's feature, so to say. But as we limit ourselves a bit by the region, as I mentioned, so Germany and everything to the east, we remain opportunistic. But in general, what we see, all the clean tech sustainability solutions get now a lot of attention. There are now a lot of new funds established just to support those companies. So that is definitely also a trend there to stay. And maybe something that has been a bit overrated in the past is dev tools. Like, I think a lot of VCs were spending a lot of time on that hype those companies a lot, but those are the companies that today probably struggle to actually build that revenue that investors expect. So I start, you can take from here.
It's tough to not talk about AI, and maybe just to qualify and to add to that a little bit, what we believe is that kind of on the foundational model side, a lot of funding has gone into that, and it's kind of reached a great kind of state of maturity now, and probably a lot of the value will actually come through business applications in the end. And so that means that either there are SaaS companies that can incorporate AI into their product to make businesses more efficient, and that is interesting. And either you can be a company who helps kind of businesses incorporate that better, or it's kind of a core part of how you're building the product. And I also know that, Chris, for example, you and the team are focusing a lot around kind of exploring how to incorporate that into Stonely as well. So that we find super exciting, to the point where when we do kind of investment decisions now, we always kind of ask the question kind of what the AI strategy is for the company, whether that is kind of affecting you at some point or not, and whether the whole business model might be disrupted through that down the road, because I think for some industries that is actually something that is coming up.
So even when you're talking to companies that do not do anything with AI, like you actually push the founders to ask them like, what's the AI strategy? Like you have to see something. So ultimately every company is gonna be like years back, like every company was supposed to become a fintech company, right? Like right now it's every company is gonna be an AI company, right?
Yes and no. I think most importantly you need to have thought about it, and it might be that, hey, the risk or there's no overlap and you don't need to touch it, but at least we want to see founders kind of actively engaging with that and thinking about it, and that's very important. And maybe kind of just to not talk just about AI, one other thing that we see that is very interesting that also kind of touches upon the sustainability trend is that especially in Europe, so much of the economy hinges on manufacturing, and manufacturing relies on skilled blue-collar labor. And what we see now these days with kind of a big generation of skilled blue-collar workers, electricians, etc., going into retirement, and at the same time kind of big trends, for example, the need to build a sustainable power generation infrastructure, there's actually not enough workforce in the market to really address that. And so that has interesting implications for early stage startups, and that could be that you're building something in the upskilling and reskilling or in the talent space or in the jobs marketplace space, but it could also be that you solve kind of that bottleneck around kind of blue collar shortage through robotics, and you bring down the costs of automating kind of the shop floor. And so it's quite an interesting macro trend that we're seeing across Europe.
Chris, how about you? I guess you're also implementing AI strategies into your product these days. Is it something you work closely with?
Yeah, so AI is everywhere, and I believe it's a very important move to do. Well, it's not only because investors are looking at it, but it's also can enhance the product. So this is not the core functionality of Stonely, but we try to incorporate AI as a thing that will add a lot of value to Stonely. So Stonely is living mostly in the space of customer support and digital adoption. That's where AI can be used very effectively, but it also depends where you put the focus on. In our case, we focus on making AI that you can rely on. That's what we say, and that's what we believe in. So we want to make AI that people can really use and can benefit out of it. So we want an AI that gives you the accurate answers, that can, probably give you the better way to find a solution. That's what we do, and we want to, at some point, we want to incorporate also for the content creators. We want the editors, the content creators, to be able to maintain the content up to date, to find the duplicates. This is very specific to our product, but there are very different ways of applying AI to your product, and I think it's worth to explore all the different directions you can take and really look at it as an opportunity, and probably this is also quite important in terms of the future growth. So, yeah.
So it seems you have an AI strategy. That's good.
Markus asked about that.
We do have AI strategy. I already discussed that with Markus before, so he is aware of that.
Perfect. Before we give the mic to the audience, there's going to be a chance to ask a couple of quick questions. Markus, Eva, I just wanted to touch on the current fundraising market. I guess there's a lot of confusion, at least for founders who haven't been out there trying to raise funds for a while. What's your outlook on that? Like, how do you see the prospects for early stage companies, say from pre-seed to Series B, raising money these days? What do you have to have? Eva, can we stay with you?
Yeah, I think in general I want to say that there is a lot of money out there. So, I think it's a great time to build, and it's possible to raise. Just the capital is more selective, and I think it's a good thing in general, because 2-3 years ago, like really some things got funding that probably shouldn't have got funding. So I think it is a great time to build. I mean, there is a confusion out there about the valuations. Like we investing in Series A, I have talked to great founders that I have been tracking since their seed round for the past 18 months, and they raised their seed round at the peak of the market, let's say valuations 30 to 50 million, but they maybe don't have today even 1 million in revenue. So what do you do with that?
Aye, aye, aye.
And it hurts me as well, because I really like the founders I would want to invest, but you don't necessarily want to be the one saying, well, I'm not. You have to actually lower your valuation, so you kind of wait for them to realize that on their own, right? By talking to the current investors. So I feel that the valuations become more reasonable, but still there is a gap from between what founders expect and actually what makes sense, because we need to be diligent as well. We cannot pay whatever, because then it makes very hard to actually return the money in the end. So there have been deals where we passed because of the valuation. And I mean, we all know in 5, 6, 7 years whether it was a good or bad decision. But in general, I think in the end it's about the standard dilution, which in the pre-seed is probably 10 to 20%, similar in seed, Series A maybe a bit more. And today the difference is that investors want you to have a runway of at least 2 years, I would say, compared to 18 months before, because it just takes now longer to raise. So you actually want to have enough time to reach the next milestones and have a strong case.
Yeah, that was very well put. And maybe just a few things to add to that. In terms of the valuation, it's not just a thing for investors to think about. Ultimately, as a founder or founding team, you also want to make sure that the valuation you raise at right now doesn't make it more difficult for you to raise kind of the next round, because you probably also want to do an up round. You want to do your 2 to 3x. And if you raise at a massive valuation and cannot show the proof points in this market in 18 to 24 months to kind of get to that step, then it might actually be bad for you to do a down round. And then I think there's a lot of kind of ups and downs to navigate that. So generally we see kind of valuations, yes, coming down, but it is the levels of pre-COVID, so 2019, and that in a way is healthy, and it's not kind of outrageous, and it's not lower than where we were in the past. So that's, I think, one important thing to internalize. And maybe, sorry, were you saying something?
No. I'm curious, Maciek, what do you say? What do you see in pre-seed here now in Poland at the moment?
So Poland is dead right now. Honestly, like there's
Maciek, come on.
Very inspiring.
Very little activity in Poland going on pre-seed and seed. There's actually way more on Series A, but I had to say something controversial here, like everyone was,
Why?
I don't really know, but we see a lot of stuff going on in the Balkans, for example. A lot of stuff going on with founders from the region, and specifically from Poland, actually, building companies abroad. So there's like a lot of Polish diaspora in San Francisco, a lot of Polish diaspora in London, in Berlin as well. So we see a lot of that. Honestly, we haven't...
Guys, this is a motivation for you. Like, if we hear
It
this type
is.
of statements from the stage in OMGKRK community, this is a call to action. Guys, I don't know what you will have to do, but you have to change the Maciek's attitude.
We have term sheets with you.
But yeah, like, I mean, it was meant to be kind of more of a motivational whining, I guess. But yeah, like,
well, you will have a line of, great ideas standing right after the panel, I hope.
Definitely there's a lot of great Polish researchers. And we have a lot of amazing Polish researchers here in Kraków. So there is a lot of like AI research going on.
Yes, I've heard that we will have a really nice AI conference coming up. It will be very, let's say, scientific focused, but I think it would be one of the biggest in Europe, if not, coming soon. So
that's definitely happening. I don't want to be the messenger of bad news, but like there's a lot of amazing research going on here. And honestly, I feel like looking holistically on the market, we haven't been busier in a while, honestly. Like we see a lot of great pre-seed projects, meaning like, great teams, who graduated from great universities, also the ones here in Kraków, who have spent some time in big tech like Meta, Google, whatnot, all around the world, and are coming back to actually build. So that's definitely on the exciting part. Speaking about valuations, actually, we are in the pretty tough spot on pre-seed and seed, because our kind of terms, our valuations and our round sizes are still inflating. So we are still meant to pay more for companies, for stakes in companies. The talent is still pretty expensive, although today I actually had a board meeting with one of my portfolio companies, and for the first time ever, they said that there's more supply than demand on the market. So we are slowly seeing some first signs of cool down, that actually, like, you know, an offer that they couldn't feel for like weeks or months before, like, you know, for a full stack engineer in Warsaw, they actually receive like 150 applications. That's definitely, you know, kind of rebalancing the whole situation. But then like Series A and Series B investor pay less for our company. So, you know, our multiples are getting are kind of compressing. But that's, yeah, in general, like super exciting times.
Okay, guys, now it's your time to get some challenging questions to our panelists, because you know, Maciek has said a lot towards our ecosystem. So now it's your turn to you know, change the mindset of Maciej, plus you know, ask some questions to other panelists. There's a microphone over there passing by JD, so feel free to grasp it.
Hi guys, Jurek Hubrom. I would like to double click on the Poland is dead thingy. So we operate in actually major ecosystem across the world, and I need to admit that Kraków might be a little bit better. It's not dead, but might be better in terms of startup density, number of startups, quality of startups. So one thing that you have to, like, what one action point for me, for Maciek, the ecosystem players here, like what we can do to improve the situation across the board. Thanks.
Any ideas, guys? Like, you're free also to give your ideas. Like, it doesn't have to be a question. It can also be, let's say, action point for maybe the community that we can change something.
So I can maybe kick it off. And then, like, if you have any proposals, then I'm super happy to give you the mic. I think as a Kraków ecosystem, we had a pretty good moment that we failed to use to actually spark the momentum, and that was actually when you know, both, you know, all the companies that we've been talking about, Brainly, Estimote, Contact, were like super hyped up. You know, they were kind of inviting great investors here to town. Like, we are trying to do it again right now, inviting Eva and Markus, like after years. But then, like, those companies failed to actually exit. This would, I guess, create this flywheel effect in Kraków and in our ecosystem of, like, you know, people having ESOP, meaning like basically shares of the companies, to put it this way. You know, liquidity, selling the company would actually start the
JD,
movement.
we need to work harder for about to exit soon.
Sales
of you know, people with some money to actually start their new companies, actually seeing the entire path, like from the very beginning, starting the business, building the product, selling it to customers, and then exiting the company. Like, that's a magical path, right? Like, you have to go through it from very beginning to the exit to actually spark this, like, inspiration and build a new generation of companies. And we actually see it with UiPath. Credo was lucky, like my colleagues, not me personally, but my colleagues were lucky enough to invest in UiPath that IPO'd on NASDAQ, and a lot of early employees actually became like pretty rich, honestly. Like, you know, there's like millionaires out there who are not like particularly founders of the business, and we have already invested in 2 companies founded by former employees, early employees of UiPath, who have seen the whole story from.
So this is at least the story that I can share from Estimote, that we may not have exited yet, but at least, Estimate Mafia is creating new startups. So we have two examples of those today. So one is Marcin's Klimek avatar that you may have seen at the entrance. He's supporting like VR and, augmented reality marketing with avatars. So this is also our Mafia. And there's Przemek also today with us that he's doing like a 3D mapping, and he's able to do like remote installations for different types of business. So I think that this shows that, even though I have to say that Estimate is not that much engaged at the community these days, because we are focusing more on enterprise deals that requires a lot of attention, and unfortunately there's not that much space for being an active part in the community and show, let's say, or exchange knowledge and pass that, experiences that we gained. But at least, there's a bunch of new companies coming from people that, let's say, left the company and started to their own businesses. So those are at least some small success stories that I can share.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And I think, I don't want to kind of dominate this question, but like, Credo is based out of Czech Republic. And in Czech Republic, like, the ecosystem is kind of centralized around Prague. I mean, there is Brno. It also has like a small startup ecosystem. But at the end of the day, like, everyone's traveling to Prague, and Prague is like the main hub where everyone kind of spends time, and everyone kind of attends the same events and whatnot. Like in Kraków, in Poland in general, like we have this weird situation of having like a couple of decently like big cities, like Warsaw, Kraków, Poznań, Łódź, Wrocław, Rzeszów, like, Gdańsk, the Tri-City in general. And
we are doing everything to centralize it in Krakow, even though Warsaw is that central.
yeah.
Okay, guys, any more questions? Because I don't want to keep you that much. I really appreciate that you're staying with us for that long.
No worries. Thanks, Maciek. I almost forgot my question, actually. So, thanks for the conversation, guys. Jokes aside, like, really quick question, continuing on what you said about like the Polish startup environment, etc. So, like, it's very hard to find like very, very successful Polish startups, I would say. I mean, like the startups that are like everywhere, like globally, and are like scaling super fast. So, what do you think is the reason for this? So, basically, in the environment of like technology, I've noticed that a lot of like developers, for example, they're working for the companies like, I don't know, Revolut and the rest of the fintechs. They usually are not like creating the new startups. They prefer like to stay under someone, so they are joining another startup that is like foreign startup for us. I mean, I don't know, the UK, France, USA, of course, right now. So what do you think is the reason why Poland cannot build like the very, very, very successful startup globally?
Thank you so much
scale.
for that question, because that was exactly what I wanted to hear from them today.
I can have a guess, but maybe I'm totally wrong because I'm not an insider. But I don't know, Poland is a big market as such, right? I come from Latvia and the Baltics. Every company has to go global from day one because the whole market is so small. I often see Polish startups that actually start with the Polish market and spend the first 2-3 years in the Polish market, then they want to raise Series A, but their whole traction is from Poland. And that's nice, but that's not great. So maybe that contributes to that, but I don't know.
I think I have the same thought, actually, and I think in terms of size, I think you're just at the barrier where maybe on the consumer side you can build a great business, but then on the B2B side you have to think more globally, and that's probably something to think about. But I also feel like another thing that came to my mind was that a lot of the talent that has worked for the big companies, because you have kind of seen world-class organizations, there might have been in the past, and certainly it was kind of the past in some of the previous generations, that you want to move to the melting pot of entrepreneurship. And so I guess there is a big kind of diaspora of Polish entrepreneurs who kind of move abroad to London, to the US, etc. And I think in the past it was true that you needed to go there sometimes to find the talent and to kind of build a big company. But I think the recent years have also shown us that you can build great companies in any places of the world. And I think Credo has a lot of kind of knowledge or like kind of experience with doing that as well. And so hopefully that is changing now as well in Poland, where I think there are already some founders that I've met over the last few years that have consciously said like, hey, we want to have some of our biggest teams kind of, or like core teams in Poland, even sometimes beyond engineering, hey, we're building a go-to-market team, etc. And then you still kind of have this kind of mindset of going abroad and going international.
So I can probably add something to that question. We are global from the day one, so it's a bit different for us. But still, the first employees we hired in Krakow, and I think it's well, we don't have to focus just solely on Poland. We can build startups, global startups, and we can have the pretty big part of the team working here from Poland. Yes, for now these are mostly engineers, product designers, but I believe there's also room for growth for the sales team, go-to-market teams to be based in Poland as well. And hopefully this is going to happen at Stony at some point. But yeah, I would love Stony to be an example of the company that can be built also in Poland. And well, I don't know what can I add. I think we should try to move on and build stuff.
But like Chris, so I guess that was basically the question to you. Like you spent some time in Dashlane, right? Like a huge, successful company. And yet you decided to start your own thing. Like you didn't want to join another, security company. You decided like, fuck it, I'm gonna start my own business. So like, what was the spark? Like, what is the lesson that more people can learn from that? How to actually do it.
Well, that was the great experience for sure. So I learned not only about the product, but also how to build a team, how to create a great culture, to be competitive on the Polish market. So our goal is to build something, well, better, maybe. So we wanted to give the ownership to people who are joining the team. So, and that's something that I learned at Dashlane. So, well, hiring people who can really build the product with us, who can participate, who can take the ownership, who can feel that this is also their product. So I don't feel that we are just executors. We are not only executing, we are also the part of it. So I think we are not like Revolut. I mean, Revolut is great, but this was the UK company that decided to open the office in Poland. We were based in Poland from the day one. So I think that my advice would be to learn as much as possible, to try to join the early stage company, I don't know, Series A level, maybe seed round level, so something like that, to learn as much as possible, to learn how to build the company, how to work on the go-to-market strategy, how to build the product, and then take this knowledge and start your own thing. If you have the vision, if you have something in mind, if you have the confidence that this may happen, this may work, that's the way to go.
Hopefully, guys, you're motivated.
Can I just jump in? I did, when we did start that 10 years ago, I heard the same, and I was telling the same story about generation change, where we'll be growing companies, and then these companies will exit, and the people who exit will fund new companies. I think this is still lacking. I completely agree. I worked in fact, Victor Sarota did exit, and he only invested in a couple of companies because we're not chasing them. These people you know them. They went to events a couple times, so it's on you to chase them. They're not gonna show up to an event and say, "Hey, here's my money." You have to chase them. That's one thing. And I'm actually gonna agree with Chris. I grabbed the mic to say the exact same thing. I'm working for I founded 8 companies here. I found 23 co-founders in this community on events like this, and this only happened, when we were still grinding. And now I'm working for another company. I'm super happy. I'm at a stage in my life where I'm not founding a company. I don't need that stress anymore. But if I swap that path and I first worked for a bigger company, I would know what GTM means. I would know what's go-to-market and how the sales is functioning in a bigger companies, how to approach bigger companies. All of my companies were B2B, and yet we had to learn how to sell to B2B companies. We had to learn how to sell to businesses because we didn't know that. We were never in a company like that to begin with. Anyway, I think we're going over time, so I'm going to give it back.